But he was obviously not happy because he's had to have his players back up, as Hull did as well, with 72 hours between games. I don't want to say rest because it's not rest really, is it? No time to heal. He's been knocked out of the Challenge Cup. We're in a season where, as he said, if you win more than one trophy, you perform miracles almost. And as he says, the games are going to come thick and fast. The later we go in the season, it's been back loaded for that, for when the crowds hopefully can come back. And as he said, we've got a World Cup next year. We've got a short pre-season, a short off-season. There does need to be more understanding, but people aren't. People they're acting as if this is a normal season. It's anything but.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fans, though, right? You know, as Phil said, it's part of the fun is to be able to moan about stuff. If they're serious about it, then yeah, I kind of worry. You just got to, you know, take it for what it is at face value. We are trying to keep this sport alive right now, and anything that can get us through to the end of the season, as almost a placeholder to get to next year. We have to accept that, and you have to accept that the standards of your team aren't necessarily going to be at the level that you would expect normally, especially when they've got to play 2 games within 72 hours, as you know, in Castleford's and Hull's case. So yeah, I think we've all got to be a little bit more forgiving. I guess there's a mechanism with the points percentage. If we get to a point whereby we think for player welfare reasons we might have to shorten the season a little bit more, we can do that now. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe you have to consult the coaches on this one. I suppose we have our obligations to Sky. It's a difficult issue to resolve to make everyone happy. But listen, the players, the coaches also, like the fans, have to take it on the chin, and you have to accept some things aren't going to be ideal.
I mean, what was interesting, Phil, and I just remember this while Paul was talking about players and coaches. Powell was saying after the game, they'd been asked if they wanted more players on the bench. Some coaches said yes, some said no. Obviously, the majority must have said no, because we haven't got more players on the bench. Is that something... There's no reason now not to change rules as we go through this season, because it is what it is. So should we just say, right, as of the next round of Super League, when that starts next weekend, you're going to have an extra 1-2 play. The full 21-man squad, and it's a shame for Huddersfield because they ain't got any players or whatever, but the full 21-man squad you name, they can all be on the pitch and on the bench ready to play if needed.
Yeah, I think that there are two things about what Daryl was saying. The first thing is, clearly there is a player welfare issue, because if every team is struggling to the extent that they are at the moment, and his has been the first team along with Hull that have had to do the equivalent of a midweek fixture, this is only going to get worse. And I've got, you got to have immense sympathy for them over Sasaya Feki. I mean, they waited months to get him on there, and he lasts 24 minutes. And again, as a coach who's struggling to put your match day 17 together, the one thing you sort of do bank on is that your winger's going to stay on. You've got to be pretty unfortunate. I think he's also very frustrated with the way that his team is playing at the moment, because they're not hitting their potential, and clearly that would affect an immediate post-match interview. But as you say, the other issue he brought up was the one of interchanges, and interestingly, and clearly I defer to Paul, who actually follows football, but there was a change in the Premiership, wasn't there? When they finished off the season, they had extra players on the bench that they could call on. They had an ability to have more breaks in the game. They had the opportunity to make substitutions at certain times, but that was only ever done for this interim 9 or 10 games that they had to get through to get to the end of the season. We may need to do the same. We may need to say, look, everybody's got roughly 9 or 10 games left, because not every one of the games that have currently been postponed will be replayed, which is one of the reasons why we've gone to percentages. Maybe the number of interchanges in a game doesn't change, but the ability to use more players and spread that load and put somebody on from your 21-man squad who is more positionally attuned to the people you're actually losing. So if you've got, 2 hookers on your bench and one of your hookers who started the game goes down, you can change your rotational policy to suit the circumstances of the game. Now, I think Daryl's got a real fair point in that, and nobody is going to be upset or annoyed. I think the other issue, again, is you don't want to see too many kids thrown in. It's a really fine line between giving them an opportunity and how great it is to see some of this emerging young talent, but you don't want to have to put it all on at the same time. And people, criticised the Leeds signing of Brett Ferries, and I thought in the game that he played this week, coming off the bench, was exactly what Leeds needed. He played extremely well. He was experienced. He knew the calls and the way that the team wanted to play. Probably was better to stick an experienced guy on at that stage in a game than a young kid who it might have harmed his progression. But to have that ability to choose among your 21 who you put on and have some extra latitude, that is the debate we should be having, particularly as we brought in the new rules long into this season start. We were a quarter of the way through this season when we changed the playing rules, and that has a massive impact on the recruitment you've already made. You can't do a lot about that. Australia were 2 games in, so there was a fair amount of latitude in changing that. A lot of the coaches didn't want that change to 6 again, and now you can see why.
What Phil says about not playing too many kids, I think he's right. Perhaps with the idea of an extended bench, maybe there's a way of saying, okay, you can have a substitutes bench of 8 players, but 4 of them have got to be academy players, or you have some sort of quota. So you can't, if you're a stronger team like a Warrington or a St Helens, have your 20 top class players to go against poor old Huddersfield who've basically got nobody left. But if you say that this is a chance for academy players who have played under a certain amount of first team games, then that might be a way of getting them a bit of game time, bit of experience without going over the top, and also resting some of your key players. I don't know, that might be a terrible idea. I've just made it up right now. I've given it no thought whatsoever. But
you're on the RFL board then. I think the other thing about it is we need to look at HIAs, because although they don't count as substitutions unless a player can't come back, I think there should be this greater latitude with an extended bench, that if somebody goes off for an HIA, you can put someone on in their position. We don't have that at the moment. If it is your winger that's going off for 15 minutes to be tested, then it would be great, I think, for the shape of the team if there was someone on the bench who covered the wing and 3/4 positions, rather than you had to stick a hooker back out there, because that's all you've got left. So I think we do need to be cognizant of the fact that things, as they get even more hectic fixture-wise, are probably going to have to change with regards to interchange. And I'm glad Daryl's brought the subject up. I think for him, it's a shame that it's always a shame that you bring something up when you're talking on the back of a couple of defeats, because people seem to think, there's a touch of sour grapes in there. But I don't think there is in this case. I think he's making an extremely valid point that we need to do something about to preserve the players. They are putting in some ridiculous shifts at the moment, and they're not getting the credit for it. And it's in every team. 60 odd tackles a game is becoming the norm with the 6 again rule, and that isn't a government policy that you can only be with 6 people again, apparently.
Unless you're ground shooting.
Indeed. I'd consider actually extending that beyond HIAs as well, to include any game-ending injury in the first half. I think you've got to give a limit on it in the first half, because obviously you can get to 60 minutes and then you've gone down with a groin injury that I've got to go off, get this fresh guy on for 20 minutes. But if you extended it to all injuries, within the first half, I think that would cover a situation like Fecky, where he hobbles off after 25 minutes and you're a man down, that you then can call on an additional sub. I think that would be pretty sensible at this stage.
I think the other thing to bear in mind is that we all love the sport. We'll watch it if it's played at 3 o'clock in the morning on the moon with 6 aliens watching it, whatever it is, you know, we're the wrong people to ask about the sport, because we passionately love it and care about it and want it to survive and be the best it can be. But I think if we're being honest, the more games you cram in at this time with lack of training and having come off a long break inadvertently, the standard, however you measure that, is going to fall. And I think, again, to the neutral viewers and to potential television broadcasters who might be just starting to negotiate about future contracts, to sponsors, be they in kind or otherwise, I think we've got to maintain the integrity of what is on the field. And I think the worry is that without bringing in these extra subs or allowance on interchange, whatever it might be, we are going to see some Easter Monday type games more often than we're not, and that doesn't do the sport any good. And again, none of that is the fault of the players.